Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. Great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, is the EFF's decision to suspend its Limpopo Student Command member a silencing of dissenting voices in the party? Or is it a demonstration that ill discipline will not be tolerated ahead of its elective conference? Kganki Mphahlele was expelled by the party for accusing Julius Malema of trying to impose Godrich Gadi as the party's deputy president. But he says his axing was not procedural. Well, he'll speak to us tonight. Also on the show is the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Dean McPherson, and his deputy, Sihle Zikalala, seeing eye to eye on government's expanded public works program because the minister believes that the program needs to be reviewed, while the deputy says its implementation will be accelerated. That deputy minister, Sihle Zikalala, will join us tonight. And then later, what lessons can this government of national unity take from the old GNU on how to manage their differences? The ANC and the DA have been engaged in public spats since the formation of the GNU. Roelf Meyer was the Minister of Communications of Constitutional Affairs in the first GNU. He'll share with us some of the lessons that this new GNU can learn from the old one on how to manage their differences. But first, my comment. So, Sekhukhune United has released a statement. In fact, its player is expected to appear in court tomorrow after he caused an accident in Tembisa yesterday that claimed the life of a 9-year-old girl and left others injured. He was initially supposed to appear in court today, but that appearance has been moved to tomorrow because the docket was not ready. The authorities have since indicated that they discovered bottles of alcohol and drugs on the scene of this accident. So Sekhukhune United has now released a statement today saying that, and I quote here, Sekhukhune United FC regrettably learned of the unfortunate incident involving one of our players, Sean Moraila. We would like to convey our deepest and heartfelt condolences to the family of the minor who lost her life. Our thoughts are with the players. In fact, our thoughts and prayers are also with those who have been injured, and we wish them a speedy recovery. The statement goes on to say the club is unable to comment further as the matter is before the courts. So that's a statement that has been released by this football team that Sean Moraila belongs to. But we need to have a serious conversation as a country because we have a serious problem of drug usage in this country, and that requires, as I say, a serious conversation, some serious reflection as a society. This soccer player was still young, well, 29 years old, and now his career is potentially destroyed. And more tragically, there's a life that has been lost because he probably was under the influence. What leads our stars across the board to get into drugs and alcohol? Is it the pressures that they face? Is it the high intensity of their work? Is it the lack of preparedness for success? Either way, these drugs and alcohol are destroying careers and they're destroying lives. And this doesn't only affect celebrities or sports stars. This actually affects all of us as a society. All of us tonight know at least one person who takes drugs or alcohol, or sometimes they do it excessively. So the question we're asking you tonight on Face the Nation is, what do you think needs to be done to deal with the scourge of substance abuse in our society? Do you think that the punishment that we have for drinking and driving is strong enough? Because people do this because they know that they can get away with it, or because they know that the consequences won't be that severe. So what do you think needs to change? Because there are so many innocent lives that are being affected on our roads. There's a child who has died at the age of 9. So something has got to give. You can send us your WhatsApp voice note on 078 459 1897. Remember to tell us your name and surname and where you're sending that voice note from. And please keep it at 30 seconds. Alternatively, you can send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. After the break, we'll speak to that member of the EFF Student Command who was fired by the EFF for taking on Julius Malema on Twitter. They're saying he was found guilty of bringing the party into disrepute. Stay with us here on Face the Nation. Welcome back. Now, the EFF Students Command Council has expelled one of its members, Kganki Mphahlele, for bringing the organization and its leaders into disrepute. This decision follows Mphahlele's critical comments about the EFF leader Julius Malema on X. In his post, Mphahlele accused Malema of attempting to impose Godrich Gadi as the party's deputy president. He further stated that the EFF branches prefer Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi for the deputy president position. Kganki joins us now via Teams. Kganki, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, Comrade Lemon. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. The EFF says it's decided to expel you from the party because you've brought the organization into disrepute by using your social media platforms to defame and insult the party's leaders. Why do you believe that this expulsion is procedurally unfair?
Is the EFF expulsion letter? The EFF Students Command does not have powers to expel. Out of the 3 documents that are there, the Constitution, the Code of Revolutionary Conduct, and the deployment policy, there is nowhere whereby the EFF Students Command can expel. All they can do is that they can convene a disciplinary hearing with students who are members of the Students Command. If they prefer an expulsion, they recommend to the EFF. So you see, I was even expelled by the wrong structure to start with. So that's the thing. That's how it was unfair.
Okay, so if the Secretary General is the one who communicates your expulsion, does that make it fair in your view?
Of the EFF?
Yeah.
Yeah, also given that I'm suspended first, I go to a disciplinary committee or hearing, then I'm charged in the disciplinary hearing. And then they will tell me if they expel me or engage with me to say, are you showing remorse and all those things? And they could it like that.
Okay, let's look at what has happened and how you reflect on those actions, because you have insulted the leader of the party on social media. In any other party, this is behavior that is punishable, don't you think?
Let's say, I don't think I insulted.
I mean, you tweeted that Julius Malema is not a National People's Assembly superdelegate. You accused him of imposing Godrich Gadi as the EFF deputy president. What did you base this claim on?
He's not a superdelegate. He's just a delegate. You know, a superdelegate, like the UN Security Council, those ones who are permanent members who can veto any decision, no matter how many countries agree or disagree. They can just veto simply because they sit in the Security Council as permanent 5 members. So Julius was showing us that behavior to say, even if branches want Mbuyiseni, if I say Godrich, I can veto all your views just like that. So that's behaving like a superdelegate. He's behaving like a permanent member of the UN Security Council, and we disagree with that.
So when you're saying he wanted to impose Godrich Gadi as the EFF deputy president, what do you base that on?
What do I base this on? Okay, there are NPA guidelines to say, let's campaign at branches, let's not campaign on social media to avoid having to insult each other, because we know it's going to get there. Okay, we engage at branches. On social media, what is happening is that normally the commander-in-chief, leaders of the party, they post Godrich Gadi with them. The commander-in-chief retweets those things. No one must ever lie to us. Retweets are endorsements. If a retweet is not an endorsement, let tomorrow Gate and McKinsey publish claim a victory for the GNU. Why he must retweet it if it's not an endorsement? So it's an endorsement, this thing.
But then which tweet has Julius Malema retweeted that said Godrich Gadi is the one that must be the deputy president of the EFF?
is the multiple tweets that have been posted by provincial leaders. Provincial chairperson of Gauteng, Komisa Nkululeko Dunga, provincial chairperson of Mpumalanga, Komisa Colin Sidibe, and the EFF member of parliament, that lady of ours, who was taking pictures at the headquarters, Comrade Zikalala, who, let me not even say a lot of things.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to understand is, because you are saying that they're endorsing Godrich Gadi to be the deputy president of the EFF. If Julius Malema is posting pictures with Godrich Gadi doing work, why are you seeing that as an endorsement when in fact there's nothing on the tweets or that accompanies that picture that says, I want Godrich Gadi to be the deputy president?
How is we are going to relate things now is what we call entailment in philosophy. For example, if there is organizational work that is being done, is the EFF that posts those pictures. Just like Abu Komisam Buisen are being posted to say, hey, this one has been doing a side visit there, the EFF is doing that. If you want to post a leader doing organizational work, retweets must be retweets of what? Of page from the EFF, not a page from individual. For example, that lady, Sihle, yeah. She says, she posted a picture with Godrich. She says, hear me out, fighters. What must we hear out? Because the only message we know that has to do with Godrich now is that he is standing to be the deputy president. So we must hear that out, especially when a leader of the party retweets it as an endorsement. We cannot hear that out. It's an endorsement, that thing, and we reject it.
When did Godrich Gadi enter the race for deputy president?
Huh?
When did Godrich Gadi enter the race for the EFF deputy president position?
I don't remember, but I can reference. It was before. You remember a podcast that the EFF did with Komisasi Naotambo? They released it. Is the last podcast. They released it last week Friday. So these are things that have happened around a week or a few ago. So that's where there were robust engagements, because even in this race, there was Komisa Vuyani Pambo inside.
But when did he say, I'm running as Godrich Gadi to be the deputy president of the EFF?
You don't do that. You accept the nomination in the conference. You don't do that. That's not how we campaign.
But you are saying that he's running. You said we know that he's running for deputy president.
Know.
But how do you know that when he has never said publicly to any branch that here I am?
Because we understand political jargon, Clement.
Well, that's the jargon that you make yourself, because it's going to be difficult to win that argument. When they say to you, when you make an allegation like that to a leader of your party and say, you are endorsing this man because this man wants to be the deputy president of the party, the onus is on you to show evidence. One, that Julius Malema did say, I endorse him. But two, you've got to show evidence that this man has come out to express that he wants to be the deputy president of the party. And as things stand now, you don't have that evidence, except that you are reading tweets and reading statements that have been made and pictures that are being posted to suggest what you think is at play here.
You are behaving like a GNU interviewer, but let me ask you this question. Did Mbuyiseni said he's standing as the deputy president? Did he tell me?
I'm not asking you about Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. I'll get there in a moment. Answer my question.
I'm asking you myself.
I will get there. I'll get to my next question is about Mbuyiseni. You and I can engage there.
You answer me first.
No, I'm saying I'll ask you. I'll answer you when I come to that question. I'm saying right now as it stands, do you have evidence of Julius Malema endorsing Godrich Gadi? Do you have evidence of Godrich Gadi saying, I'm standing and I want to be the deputy president of the EFF?
Answer me first.
Okay, you don't want to respond to that. Let's move to Mbuyiseni Ndlozi then. Your tweet went further to say that we want Mbuyiseni Ndlozi as our branches. Which branches did say they want Mbuyiseni Ndlozi?
The branches that we've lobbied. We're not going to disclose a lot of, we're not going to violate the NPA guidelines further. The branches that we lobbied.
You indicated earlier on that the National People's Assembly guidelines say that we should not be campaigning on social media. How is this not a campaign when you are endorsing Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi and saying branches want him?
Because we saw the commander-in-chief doing it, we saw the provincial chairpersons doing it, we saw other leaders of the party doing it. We are following the lead. No,
but remember, you don't have evidence anyway that shows Julius Malema saying, I want Godrich Gadi to be the deputy president of the EFF. You are saying branches want Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. Show me any evidence where Julius Malema made the same reference with regards to Ndlozi. You don't have that right now.
Just like I don't have Mbuyiseni saying he wants to be the deputy president.
Yeah, but that's not here or there, because we're talking about Julius. You're making a claim towards Julius Malema, but you can't substantiate it.
You, Clement, you are trying to reduce this thing into a mathematical equation where everything has to be proven to be true.
Hey, prove it to me, Kganki.
This is not mathematics, this is politics.
Hey, prove it to me. Is politics about making up your mind about pictures that are being posted on social media?
Politics is not mathematical.
What's your next move? Because you've raised these issues. What you were raising was arguably fair. Some people are saying, okay, you're making a point in that there must not be leaders that are showing an interest or favoritism towards other people, even though there's no actual evidence, because organizations must value the input of branches. And some people are in support of you there that, you know, let's hear other branches even when they disagree with us. But there are channels to raise your dissatisfaction or complaints within the organization, and you didn't follow those channels. Why didn't you raise a complaint in the party or with whatever structure that exists if you feel that Julius Malema or any other person is doing something wrong?
I don't have faith, because, for example, my brother Kganki Mphahlele has been expelled from the EFF Students Command when he was not even a student. Last year, we've sent multiple emails. We never got the responses. So I'm not going to send any email. We have had a situation crisis at the University of Limpopo when we were campaigning for SRC because people wanted to install their own SRC deployees. We wrote a letter to the EFF. I personally wrote that on behalf of the comrades because we didn't have a branch. They didn't respond to us. You know what they responded to? Instead of responding to us, they responded to a resignation letter of Mpomorolane for PR stunts. So I'm not going to write.
All right. Kganki, thank you so much for making time for us. Kganki Mphahlele is this member of the EFF Student Command Council that has been expelled. And he says that that was not procedural. And he says that he actually did what Julius Malema has done, even though, as you've heard, there was no necessarily evidence that indicates what he claims Julius Malema has done. But we've had him. You make up your mind on what's at play here. After the break, we're going to have a conversation with Sihle Zikalala. He is the Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. He seems to be believing that the program that government has used over the years has actually helped in expanding and helping people get jobs. But his Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure seems to believe that that program needs to be reviewed. We'll talk about all of that when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Sihle Zikalala, says the department plans to accelerate the expanded public works program to create millions of job opportunities, highlighting its importance in poverty alleviation and skills development. However, his superior, the Minister of Public Works, Dean McPherson, has expressed a willingness to reconsider government's approach to this EPWP program. During the launch of his national listening tour in Gqeberha on Monday, he highlighted the need to rethink and reform the EPWP to enhance its effectiveness. The Deputy Minister, Sihle Zikalala, joins us on Face the Nation tonight. Deputy Minister, thank you for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, and thanks for having us in your program.
What exactly is happening with the expanded public works program? Because the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure said a few days ago that it needs to be reviewed. And today you told the committee that the department will accelerate its implementation to create jobs. It's a bit confusing.
Yes, I'm not sure whether the minister meant by reviewing meaning to discontinue. I don't believe so. The program was launched, phase 5 was launched by the President, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, early this year. The program is earmarked to attract or to create 5 million job opportunities between the period of 2024 to 2029. So it is an ongoing work that will continue to happen and take place. Reviewing, I believe it's about tightening the program and making it to be more impactful than to phase it out.
What exactly is the minister concerned about regarding this program? What necessitated this interest to review it? What has he seen?
No. I wouldn't want to speak on his behalf. I think he can allude to that on his own. From where we are, when we assess the program at the beginning of the year, we identified few areas that needs to be reviewed. The first one was the whole issue of recruitment, wherein in some cases you find that recruitment is done in a way that is not fair and transparent. The second issue was about ensuring that the program is now linked to service delivery areas that are focused and developmental. The third is to ensure that the program has a proper exit plan, which include training or enterprise development. And lastly, is effective monitoring. So those are key areas that I believe need to be tightened as we go forward with the implementation of phase 5.
So what I'm trying to understand, and we'll get to, because I would like you to discuss with us how impactful this program has been. But what I'm trying to understand is, what does the Minister, Dean McPherson, mean when he says the project has been abused for far too long? And is there evidence of this abuse? And if so, how is it that you didn't pick this up when you were infrastructure minister? Why is he picking up something when he's just joined a few months ago? Have you seen this evidence of abuse that he speaks of in this program?
There have been reports that have always been there about abuse, as I have already said. These include specifically the recruitment process. Either you'll get that political parties try to manipulate the program, or you will find people who are recruiting through bad things or bad approach. So there must be transparency, there must be fairness. And that's what we did when we launched phase 5 at the beginning of this year. We started putting in measures to ensure that the recruitment is properly managed and transparent. We also said we must deal with the issue of ghost workers, where people claim that there are people who are employed while they are the numbers do not tally. So we are dealing with all of those issues, and I'm convinced that that review talked about tightening and addressing these weaknesses that were there before and that we had started to address.
How did you start to address it, Deputy Minister? Because from what I'm picking up from Minister Dean McPherson, he's the one that's starting a review. He's not saying, I'm continuing a review that was started by the previous administration. So if you've picked up these weaknesses, what practical thing did you do to address them?
Firstly, we have put up the systems to ensure that the process is transparent. 2, we are even advocating that there must be a bigger role of the department on monitoring rather than leaving everything to municipalities. So we had started intervening and going straight to this project, putting a clear monitoring mechanism and rejuvenating the program. When we launch it, when we launched phase 5 in Eastern Cape, you would have seen what was said and the process and the programs that we are now putting in place are those that are making impact. We talk about ensuring that we focus on waste management, not only cleaning, but cleaning toward recycling in local communities. We talk about road paving, pothole patching. We talk about maintenance of government buildings.
Yeah.
Those are things that relate direct to service delivery.
So if you've already started those processes of trying to tighten the systems why is the minister then coming and saying, I need this program to be reviewed, as if there's no work that's been done? Or is he not aware of the work that you say you had already began in tightening the system?
I think he's aware. He is aware because he has a handover report. We gave him a handover report. So I wouldn't expect that he's not aware. On why he's saying he only discovered things now, I think you are asking a wrong person, because I can't respond on that question.
Well, I thought you guys work together. So I thought maybe because you guys have been together even in these listening sessions, I thought you talk and say, hey, remember, this is what I've done. Why are you telling people that it's a review when you know that there's already work that's begun?
Even if we work together, it's also helpful to ask a direct question from a person who has that view.
Okay. Let's look at this project and what it's been able to achieve. Has it worked? Has it created the much needed jobs?
It has worked. It has built number of people. There are people who, through this program, got skills and then got employment. There are people who, through this program, have benefited and able to start their enterprises, and they are now working. On a number of projects, which are construction projects, we often get people of EPWP, and most of them end up being employed in those companies.
But then these jobs are short-term income relief. How do they pay? How sustainable are the jobs?
Yes, you'll remember, Kleben, that these jobs are meant to address, one, unemployment and poverty, two, to provide skills. So you'll find that people are enrolled for a particular period, it could be a year or so, and then they have to exit to allow others. And there have been abuse in some cases where people will stay on the program perpetually and deny others to come in. Those are things that we had already started reviewing under the 6th administration.
All right, let's look at the procurement regulations now, because the minister has blamed them for incentivizing the construction mafia. He was referring to this requirement in legislation that any government contract that is above 30 million rand must be subcontracted. In fact, 30% of the value of that contract must be subcontracted to local businesses. The minister says these regulations have motivated criminal behavior. Is that what you have observed as well?
No, the criminal behavior is wrong. It must be dealt with seriously, and we must be united on that. The criminal behavior undermines development. It undermines even those small companies that have to benefit. The problem here is not about how we give allocation. The problem of mafias is that they don't want to work, they want to be given money. Yet there are small companies that must really benefit from this public procurement preferential system. And we will still want to insist that the projects that are big, when they are finalized, 30% must be allocated, but that 30% of subcontracting must be implemented through proper processes with clear regulations. If we say we are localizing, it must be based on the district that the project is located in, and we must use the database of companies that are there. They must use people who qualify, who will deliver, not people who will come and demand money without working. That is criminality.
Yeah. How can we better regulate this legislation, though, Deputy Minister? Because I think that's where Minister McPherson is coming from. Because sometimes criminals are coming in and they're forcing businesses to subcontract their companies. In some instances, companies who get subcontracted don't even offer good quality work and they don't fulfill their obligations. So how do we ensure that there are legitimate SMEs, for instance, that deserve to participate in these government infrastructure plans? How do we better regulate this procurement legislation so that these companies being subcontracted are actually legitimate, they do good work, and also they're not politically aligned?
I think the Public Procurement Act that has been enacted by the President try to provide an overarching framework that will help us to solve this issue. In that regard, through this act, you will be able now to localize and have people working in a localized area, but they should be registered. They must be known that these are companies, they are working in this district, they've got this grade, the grading system that is done by CIDP. So we must tighten the implementation of these regulations.
But what work has been done? Because this, the opening of the door to, as Minister McPherson says, to criminal behavior, or these weaknesses have been around. What has been done by the previous administration to ensure that the contracts that get subcontracted by these big companies are legitimate, they are trained as well, so that they're able to also offer good quality work? Has enough work been done to support these communities?
Well, I think we must address both. Firstly, the regulations. You will remember that there were regulations of 2017, April 2017, which were later challenged in court. Now there is a public procurement bill, which is a framework, a public procurement act, which now should guide all of us, not only on the issue of big contract, but in the public procurement system as a whole. Thirdly, there are programs that train people or companies, small companies. There is a CIDP program that support the small companies, which is called the BUILD program. That is where they get registered and get training and be assisted even to know how to access government opportunities. So there have been programs that are empowering these small companies.
Okay. I want us to wrap up with what the finance minister had to say during the medium-term budget policy statement yesterday, announcing really opportunities to turbocharge infrastructure funding in South Africa. How is that going to assist the department in, as the minister said, turning South Africa into a construction place?
No, we welcome the budget, the mid-term budget, as presented by the minister. On the side of the public works and infrastructure, on infrastructure investment, it will make it easy for even the private sector to invest in infrastructure. And that is what we have been engaging with the minister. And we are grateful that he has taken up this, because through PPP, either through the build, operate, and transfer, we can be able to ensure that the private sector invests more money in the infrastructure in the country.
All right, Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Sihle Zikalala, thank you so much for making time for us on Face the Nation tonight. After the break, we are going to speak to Roelf Meyer. This is someone who was part of the first administration, in fact, the first GNU after the transition from apartheid. What lessons does he think the new government can learn from the old government of national unity? That conversation coming up next. Stay with us. Welcome back. The question we've been asking you on Face the Nation tonight is, what do you think needs to be done to deal with the scourge of substance abuse in our society? Is the punishment we have for drinking and driving strong enough? Because people do this because they know that they can get away with it, or because they know the consequences won't be that severe. Some of you have sent us your responses on X. Thomas says, the government is not doing enough to fight drugs, and especially drunk and driving. As we speak now, there are pubs filled with cars at the parking when they close at 2 p.m. Who drives those cars? And police are always visible during those times. I think they meant to say 2 a.m. Lerasa says, to be honest, our justice system is too weak when coming to drinking and driving penalties. Look at what happened recently in Tembisa, where this 9-year-old child lost their life. This is Lerasa sending a message there from Zebediel. All right, let's move to this now. Tensions within the Government of National Unity have escalated in recent weeks, particularly between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance. The main point of contention has been whether government decisions can be made unilaterally, as the DA asserts. The ANC is doing. That's what the DA has been accusing the ANC of doing. Or whether these decisions actually require consensus. An important lesson, though, for the politicians in the GNU, coming from someone with experience, is that these experiences are meaningless unless you learn from them. Let's speak to Roelf Meyer, who is, in fact, someone who was a member of the GNU under then President Nelson Mandela. Mr. Meyer, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening.
You were part of the first GNU in the country, albeit under different circumstances. What has been your assessment of this GNU so far? What do you think they're getting right? What do you think they're getting wrong?
I think we first of all have to emphasize that, it differs from the one of 30 years ago in the sense that that was a prescribed model according to the interim constitution, and it was based on the outcome of the first national election in 1994. And of course, it was then under the leadership of President Mandela. But I think what I can observe as an outsider from the current operation is that it's going fairly well. It's early days. I mean, it's only 2 months or so. So we can't really judge the content and the depth of the decisions that have been taken. But at the same time, there were good performances. And I think the interim budget that was presented yesterday by the Minister of Finance, the way it was, or the reaction to it was very positive. So overall, my assessment would be I would give them a 70%, but that's a thumbs up. Overall, the picture is positive.
All right. I would imagine that the secret is with also putting the national interests first, right, above political party agendas. But then the parties in the GNU are also there to advance the interests of their constituencies as well. So where do they strike a balance?
Yeah, that's going to be problematic, especially when the time of elections come, which we will first see at the time of the local elections in 2 years. At the moment, I think there should be not too many obstacles and hurdles that they should have to cross. You emphasize the point of the necessity to put national interests first and not party interests or personality interests. And I think that is absolutely the departure point that everybody should follow. And if there are differences, which one can expect, then there is a mechanism that has been established. I just read today that the clearing house or the clearing mechanism for differences has ruled or has decided on a way to deal with the differences as far as the basic education is concerned. So there are processes in place, and what I would definitely recommend is that they should follow national interest as the guiding line. The National Party walked out of the Government of National Unity in 1996, and that was a huge mistake, and to my mind also unnecessary. And look what happened to the National Party. It collapsed and it disappeared. So that's a bad lesson for others to follow, and I think under the current circumstances we should try and urge them to keep together.
Yeah, and I'll get to that in a moment. How should the parties deal with their differences then? Because obviously they're not going to agree on everything. There is a dispute resolution mechanism that has been formed, but I'm not sure how effective it's been so far. But still, you've got some party leaders who go out publicly, express their differences in the media. So what's the best way to deal with differences, especially in the absence of effective mechanisms that have been put in place to deal with those differences?
You know, I think the best would always be go behind the doors and close the doors and sit down and find answers. That is exactly what has now been decided as far as the Basic Education Act is concerned. There's a small team that has been formed, a few members from the different parties that participate on the subject, and they will obviously go behind closed doors and try to find the answers. And I think that is the way to deal with it. And in the end, of course, you know, government must also go ahead with its work. So if there is not a solution, then I would say, you know, follow the notion of sufficient consensus and go ahead with the business of government.
I mean, they still are disagreeing on what that sufficient consensus means. Is it sufficient consensus of the parties represented in the National Assembly or parties in the GNU? That's a debate that is still ongoing, especially between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance. But let's hope this dispute resolution mechanism will resolve that at some point. What about the competition among ministers? Because, you know, as you have seen, there's always this thing of others wanting to be seen to be performing better. There are successes that are being claimed by some new ministers, successes that are the result of the work that has been in the works for a while now. But they come in and they claim it as if they miraculously did this in the last 2-3 months. And that causes some tension. So how can they ensure that there's positive competition?
Yeah, you know, it's like the members of the same team competing to catch the eye of the audience and the spectators. It's a little bit like that, and it's understandable. I think, you know, in my knowledge of the situation and my observation now, I personally think the president's guidance should be the light that keeps everybody on track. He had the experience. He's gone through this kind of exercise before. He has led the negotiations to the constitution of the country. So I think there are ways to deal with this, you know, and the problems should be minor that can't be resolved. And at the same time, I think also, you know, each of the parties should decide which are the matters that really will disrupt the functioning of the government of national unity. Mm-hmm. It's not everyday issues. And if there are certain that would disrupt, then I think they should really go back to the drawing board and find the common ground to go forward under such circumstances.
Yeah. So
the point is this, you know, the parties have to ask themselves if they don't govern in terms of the coalition agreement that exists, the declaration of intent that was signed by all in June. If they don't govern the country, who else would do it? Would be able to run this country on a basis that can meet the requirements of the people of South Africa? Mm-hmm. And over and above that, I would like to add this. People voted for the outcome of this election on the basis of their frustrations with regard to unemployment, poverty, and inequality. And I think it's key that the government of national unity as a whole, all of them, keep in mind that this is their first responsibility, to deliver to the nation. Because if people are not satisfied in terms of the status of unemployment, poverty and inequality, all of us will suffer. Not only that, those that suffer at the bottom end of the food chain. Yeah.
The National Party, as you indicated earlier, left the GNU, I think that must have been in 1996, if I'm not mistaken, during then President Nelson Mandela's presidency, which, as you have argued, led to the party's collapse and disappearance from the political scene. If the DA decides to leave the GNU, do you think that they would face the same fate?
Well, I'm no prophet, and I'm not in under the current circumstances in politics at all, so I can't really judge the situation. But from past experience, I personally think any party who would leave the government of national unity under the current circumstances will pay a price. It will be to their own detriment if they do so. Any party for that matter. Because the people, the voters, you and I will ask, why did you put own interest, party interest first above national interest? We expect you, as the people of the country, especially those that supported the parties that formed the government of national unity, we expected you to play a role and give us your response to what we require from you as parties to run the country. And if you leave the scene, you leave us behind. And I think there's a good reason why people will feel hugely frustrated with parties who do that.
What opportunities, though, do you think exist for the parties that are in the GNU? Because, as you say, this wouldn't be good for any party that leaves under the current circumstances. Let's look at the positive side here, because I would imagine there's an opportunity here for parties to showcase what they are capable of. So if you are running a ministry, whether you are a minister, whether you're a deputy minister, it's somehow an opportunity to show South Africans that may not have voted for you, that look at what I've been able to do in this ministry. This is the change I've been able to effect. And when people go to the polls the next time, they can even give you the next chance. So what opportunity do you think exists for these parties that are included in the GNU?
I think the whole concept of a coalition government like this is, in essence, I mean, you know, the naming of the formation of government is not that important, but in effect, a partnership agreement. I think the nature of the partnership is such that the parties work together and have decided to work together in the interest of the nation. And if they do that with the ultimate goal of working as partners, producing a combined result or a collective result, then they can all benefit from this. All the parties that would now participate in this government would be able to go back to their voters in the next election and say, okay, we have performed, look at our results. And quite frankly, if you look at the support base of the ANC, for instance, and the support base of the DA, it's in any case different voters that vote for the two parties. So from that angle, they would not be that much in competition when it comes to the next election. So if they do a joint perform in the interest of the total nation, then I think their voters would be satisfied as well. And that is the way in which I would approach it. In other words, make it a collective exercise and let us show our combined effort in terms of which we can perform and show success.
Yeah. What about the role of the leaders of the parties that are in the GNU, like John Steenhuisen, for instance, in the DA, Cyril Ramaphosa in the ANC, especially these as the two big parties in the GNU? What role do they play in just reining everyone back in? Because as I said earlier, sometimes tempers fly high, and you've got some of the members and leaders of the parties going out publicly to call each other names, to criticize each other. What effective role can these leaders play in just reminding their parties that, remember why we're here, remember why we're doing this?
Leadership is very important in this process, undoubtedly. In the first instance, it starts with the president. I mean, he's the leader of government. And the party leaders equally have responsibility as far as their own party members are concerned and their own executives and so forth. So undoubtedly, they have to give the guidance and the leadership and the direction. I think, by the way, that was one of the problems. We can talk about it frankly today. I think that's one of the problems that Mr. F.W. de Klerk had with members of his own national party at that time. It's probably one of the reasons why the National Party was forced to leave the government of national unity, is the unhappiness from within. And I think that's one of the things that one has to be very cautiously handle and manage and steer in going forward. And that would again be my advice to all the party leaders. You know, make sure that you cover your own back. Look over your shoulder. Your problem might not be ahead of you, but actually behind you. So, and that is the nature of the game. One has to be very cautious about it. Make sure that you're on top of your facts, information, and canvass as much as possible support from your own base, and consult on a regular basis.
Yeah. Roelf Meyer, thank you so much for making time for us on Face the Nation. And thanks to you for watching the Thursday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back with you on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Have a good evening. Cheers.